No, sometimes it's what it is. It's just what it is. I have personally found great satisfaction out of the work that I've done. And again, the money is a choice that you make, right? So, what I actually am telling the young people I speak to now is that money is good. It's how you earn it and how you spend it can make a difference in your life. So, it really matters to me how I have earned my money because only then does that satisfaction come. So it's a very, it really destabilizes your stability when you're constantly being shown things like crypto will give you 100%, 100 times return. So this education, I think, is an ongoing process.
Welcome, folks, to the latest edition of the Money Confessions, your favorite podcast for personal finance. And today, I'm really thrilled to have a lady who is well known for personal finance and someone like me who has lived and breathed personal finance all my life. Nothing better than meeting Monika Halan, someone whom all of us, aspire to be and look up to in this space, and has done a lot of good work for this industry in India, especially to evolve. So, welcome, Monica, and thanks a
Mhm.
lot for
Thanks, Vivek.
accepting to be a guest on this
My
podcast,
pleasure.
which is
My
called
pleasure.
Money Confessions, and something which is very apt for someone like you.
I have no confessions to make. The least I do is written in my books.
Acha, we'll try to take out some from you. So thank you so much. So Monica, I was, of course, we've all seen what you've done over the past, but one thing that has intrigued me all this while, is that you're you've had a very illustrious background of being part of Yale, part of Delhi School of Economics, and then shifting, your industry to something like a personal finance is very few people do that. Most people choose more lucrative industries like investment banking, etc. Where or a researcher and things like this, where the monetary compensations are much better than in the personal finance field. So why? And of course, it is a privilege for all of us to have someone as well read as you in this field weighing in for us. But what is that made you, you know, leave behind uh, the money and come into helping people with money?
So Vivek, a lot of times where you end up in your life in terms of career choices is really a set of circumstances. So when I finished Delhi School of Economics masters, I realized that I could do 5 pages, 6 pages of register pages of maths, econometrics. You could solve those problems, but it had no relation to my real life. I couldn't write a check. So I remember a time when I couldn't write my check, and my father said, "But you're a master's in economics." I said, "Well, it has not definitely equipped me to deal with this real world." So the idea was to escape academia. I found it rigid. I found it abstract, and I found it very unwilling to um, uh, go outside of the boundaries they had created. And this is, 1990s. It is a long time ago. It has changed subsequently with behavioral econ coming. Had behavioral econ been on the menu for me 30 years ago, I might have actually gone into academia because that talks to me, talks to real life. So one of the escape routes was to join business journalism. So when your first job, when you take something, the idea of a research job was horrific. To sit in one room and just look at a screen was, at that age, was really horrific. So it's almost by elimination. And writing is something I've enjoyed, and with a business Delhi school degree, it wasn't very difficult to make a breakthrough in business journalism. Not many people make this transition. And then business journalism to personal finance happened many years later. And again, that was a strange story where I was in Economic Times. And that time I had a small baby and I was commuting Gurgaon to ITO. and a new magazine was being set up called Intelligent Investor, which was going to be India's first personal finance
Right.
magazine. Nobody knew what it was. I simply made the transition because it cut my commute time to half. It's as the story is as silly or as circumstantial as that, and I discovered personal finance when I joined the
Serendipity,
magazine.
maybe.
And so, yeah, it's just that. So it was a decision taken for something completely different. But when I realized, you remember, this is about 1997, and it's 6 years after reform. Your first home loan products are beginning to come. You've got the 96 mutual fund regulations in place. You're beginning to see the green shoots of personal finance products coming. And that is the time I got introduced to this genre called personal finance. And from then on, it's just been a journey of educating myself, getting certifications. The deeper I got into it, at some point I began to see how the dice was loaded against the investor. So then that had a journey by itself. Once you see what is happening and you know what I'm talking about, how finance is able to really cheat people. So then the idea became, how do you turn regulation and policy into solving this? It's a market failure problem. So that's where my D school degree kicks in, where you don't do something ex post, you try and do it ex ante, where you try and solve it at the policy and regulation level so that it works for everyone. You're not Robin Hood, you're solving one person's problem. कि आपको somebody writes to you and you become the broker to intermediate. That's not, it doesn't solve the market problem. So then it got into trying to solve some of these. So I was part of government committees, Swaroop committee, Bose committee. A lot of the reform that you see in mutual funds is based out of some of those reports. So that becomes a measure of a feeling of great satisfaction. So what you
Yes.
see usually is the retail facing face, but what has happened behind the scenes in
Yes.
terms of regulations and policy, I think my deeper satisfaction comes from helping to create a marketplace which possibly is less skewed than it was before. It's not a perfect marketplace, but it's
No,
better.
absolutely. I think mutual funds, especially in India, if
Yeah.
you like, I have
Hmm.
noticed, and I keep telling people over the last 2.5, 3 decades, it has never ever uh, not honored redemptions, even with the in the worst of times. Whether
Correct.
it was the FMP crisis in 2007-8, or even the tech bust that happened. So I think that's a great thing where big banks have actually seen a run on them.
Correct.
Mutual funds saw massive redemptions in 2008 September, if I'm right, around the
Right.
uh,
That the
Goldman
North
Sachs
Atlantic
time.
financial crisis. We need to call it by its name. It is the North Atlantic financial crisis.
North Atlantic. Okay, sure. Sure. So that's a good learning for me today. But yes, I think so. That's great work from your side. So I would say that this entire episode of commuting and the amount of time, it was serendipity for the investors and not for you, because I think a lot of the investors
Sometimes
were benefited.
it's just what it is. I have personally found great satisfaction out of the work that I've done. And again, the money is a choice that you make, right?
Hmm.
So what I actually am telling the young people I speak to now is that money is good. It's how you earn it and how you spend it can
Spend it.
make a difference in your life. So it really matters to me how I have earned my money, because only then does that satisfaction come.
Great.
Yeah.
Two more questions here I had. So you have been someone who has seen this from all sides.
Yeah.
And how do you see investor behavior change over the last 2 decades? So, from my perspective, the way I see it is over the last 2 decades, of course, people have started being more informed. The quality of questions that people ask to us as financial planners have improved. So these things are good things. People do their SIPs. People do not get psyched with a 10-15% market fall. But there are few things which I personally feel, there are still mistakes that people do. Let's say one, people get caught in this entire frenzy of past returns, immediately
Right.
past returns. Whether it's mutual fund is still okay because the risk that you run, even if you go wrong, could be underperforming the peers or the benchmark to a certain extent. But when it comes to stocks, especially, there is a big loss that they can have. In fact, I just did some research yesterday on LinkedIn. I posted where a lot of stocks, as the stock price, the retail shareholding increases. And I posted about Coffee Day, where as the stock price was falling, the retail holding increased substantially, while the promoters and the FIs and the DIs all got out. And the same thing happened with Jet Airways, with Yes Bank, and many more. So this is one thing. Second thing is people flocking to the funds which have done well just in the recent past, while the funds are possibly just, the underperforming ones are reverting to mean. People pull out from those funds and go to the ones which are doing well, and then to catch the bad end of that fund's performance. And we still see people not focusing on nominating their investments, etc. So, uh, is this something which my thought is correct, or do you feel that, how do you think it has evolved from your perspective, and do you think changes of slightly more significant ramifications will come in the future?
Vivek, the quality of the investor has really changed. So when I began in this
Hmm.
space, I remember the first television show I did with NDTV, I
Hmm.
think somewhere around 2005.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I remember saying that I will not answer a question which says, I have 50,000 rupees, what do I do with it? Because those are the questions which would come. That 50,000 hai, kya karna hai? Kisme
Hmm.
dalna hai? So I said, I will not take such questions. We will take a higher order of questions. We will talk about more planning approach. We will talk about more about financial problems, about goals, about solving some of those. So even in terms of the questions that I now get, so people DM me all the time with their questions. I've not seen a single question which says, I have 50,000 rupees, what should I do? It's a base level question which looks at a one time investment rather than this whole systematic investments that from the beginning I have nudged investors towards. So we have really moved from a market which used to rebate mutual funds, used to actually get something back when you invested in a mutual fund because it was illegally rebated to you, the commission, to a place where a lot of people are now beginning to see the merit of paying for good advice. That again, it's a continuum. If uh, and it's a ripple effect. You see somebody in your network who's working with a fee only planner, and you see their outcomes, you see their calmness, you see how they're able to meet all of their life goals without going into this, what should I do now, I'm panicking, the market is falling, should I do crypto, should I buy this plot, should I do this, this it's a very harrowing experience to not have the control over your emotions when you're given either a good or a bad deal. So this airport is coming up, so this property is going to do well. So it's a very, it really destabilizes your stability when you're constantly being shown things like crypto will uh, give you 100%, 100 times return. So this education, I think, is an ongoing process, and I am seeing the conversion of investors from just a pure return seeking person, which was started, to someone who's actually investing systematically. And to your point of, so again, it's a, you are saying that they are looking at past year's winner. Again, it's part of financial literacy. So the regulator can do so much in cleaning up the product, and then it rests really on people like you who are interfacing with the investor to build these habits very solidly. And I can only pitch my book and say that, look, in Let's Talk Mutual Funds, this is exactly the question that I'm solving. How do you choose? How do you choose a scheme? And last year's winner can be next year's loser. So you must have a system which gives you consistent performance. You may not have the class topper, but you are in the top quartile, and that's good enough. So it's a continuum. But when in another industry, when you look at insurance, you see the people making the same mistakes. They're sitting on 30 policies. They are sitting on dud products. You've seen no upgrade in the quality of the advice given. So you're seeing two industries parallelly develop over a period of 20 years. And you see the sophistication. I mean, you're looking at the way that the mutual fund distributors and advisors have morphed into really sophisticated intermediaries. I don't see that. Insurance guys are still
True,
hitting
true,
and running. Right. So
true.
it's again, it talks back to the regulatory reform. And as that regulatory reform happens, the industry responds to it, and then the investors come in. And I must tell you this one story where this run up that we've had in 2023 up till now, you know who has made money? I got some data from somewhere. It is the SIP investor, not the HNI, who's been sitting on cash thinking now it'll
Right.
crash. It's not the foreign institutional investors. It is
Hmm.
this humble SIP investor who has actually made money in this rally this time. I think it speaks to the point of the maturity of investors
True,
as
true,
well.
true. Yeah. In fact, uh, we also advise on PMSs, etc. And the best part is that most funds have done much, much better. And
Mhm.
if you remove the tax problems that PMSs have, costs that they've got, and the paperwork hassle, I think mutual fund investors are sitting on almost 20-21%
Yeah,
returns.
yeah.
And that's great. Of course, I have one worry that the new investor hasn't seen a long drawn recession, more than a year, year and a half. So I hope
Vivek,
that,
the way that things are in India, I would imagine that we've got 6 to 7% growth. My
okay,
my headwind today is a fractured mandate in 24.
great, great.
That's
Exactly.
my worst
That's, yeah,
fear,
headwind. Yeah, yeah.
or it's a headwind for us, all of us, especially the
True.
youth in India.
Yeah,
That and I'm not even saying which party. I'm just saying a
yeah.
fractured mandate is going to really kill us,
Kill us.
because
Yes, absolutely.
we've got the second stage of reforms going in the last few years.
Yes,
We are
yes.
back at that 91 moment of a second takeoff,
Hmm.
and to have it taken away from us this time will be nothing short
Yeah,
of,
it'll be a big
yeah.
disaster. In fact, I am just writing an article why I feel Nifty should be 25,000 in the next couple of years. In fact, the government, a lot of structural changes have happened, which is in a way pushing people towards equity. So we see people, especially the debt fund reforms. I won't say reforms, but the taxation changes that happened in the last budget. So people are, the delta between a debt fund and an equity fund was 3% earlier or 4% earlier. Now that is moved up to 6-7%. So
Right,
people are saying, ठीक है 5% में इससे अच्छा we'll take the risk of equities.
right, right.
So that's something which is having flight of capital into equity. Second is the new tax regime that helps you, less money into small saving schemes. That will
Correct.
again move money into equity. So, anyways, so now, Monica, diving deep into your book, which is you authored two books. One was Let's Talk Money, which was a bestseller, which launched in 2018. And
Right.
then, very, very, very nobly, you also had an addendum of that book, which mentioned about COVID cases and learnings from COVID there. So, could you help us understand what made you write that book? Secondly, why so late in your career that you wrote that book? And
Because it's called Confessions. I'll make a confession. Is that the first book is not Let's Talk Money. It's called Seven Steps to Financial Freedom, which
okay,
came, I think, in 2004 or 2005.
my apologies.
No, no, not at all. And it's a confession because I'm not proud of that book.
Okay,
It's a good book, okay? It's a good book, but it got written too early in the process. So I feel a good book is a distillate of your experiences and your knowledge. You have to be in the market. You have to, and the sort of different policy hats that I've worn, the policy hat, the regulator hat, the journalist hat, all of that contributes to you distilling knowledge and information in a certain way, and then the juice of it comes out. So the 2018 book I thought was just at the right time, and it really got written because after a lot of my talks people would say, when you're speaking to us it makes sense, but what do I read? And I realized that a lot of the books that people in India were reading were by foreign authors, and they don't speak to our culture. So you have a book which is dissing his birth father and talking about somebody else's father who he thinks is the hero. Can you imagine in the Indian culture publicly dissing your own birth father? We don't do that. Okay, we just don't do that. So it's not about finance and money after a while. It's about what are the cultural uh, narratives which are being spread through these books. It's very foreign to us. The products are foreign to us. They talk about real estate. We have a mess in the real estate market. They have clean markets, cleaner markets. Your EMI and rent are near each other. Our EMI is a multiple of the rent. We have a cash component. How are we even taking those lessons and saying, oh, let's go buy real estate? So I felt very strongly about some of these things to say that we need a book in the Indian context by an Indian for the Indian with Indian products, with Indian analogies to solve very, very urban, these are typically urban Indian middle class problems. So that was the idea of the book.
Yeah. So, Monica, now, of course, this book was a bestseller. It has very high ratings on Amazon also. I wanted to know some real life examples where people have come back to you and actually told you that this book changed my life for the better.
Yeah.
Any such examples or anecdotes you would want to share?
Vivek, every day on social media, I tell you, that's really what makes my world go round. It's
Right.
beyond money. It's been 5 years. There hasn't been a day where I have not got some message from
Amazing.
somebody on one of my social media handles to say, one is to say, where were you when I was in my 20s? Why did you not write the book?
Mm.
The other is to say, I did the emergency fund, so there was this episode and I could deal with it. Or that cash flow uh, solution that I've given to separate your spending and your saving, they're saying it has really solved so many of my problems. So not a day passes that I don't hear from my readers, and that for me is the ultimate high. It is helping real people
And
solve.
what is the highest moment of this high? If you could tell us some examples like where you got
So
really
it's
bowled over.
documented. So it's documented actually in Let's Talk Money at the end, in the end
Acha.
note, where um, I go to as with my family, we go to Pondicherry and Auroville very often. So in
Okay.
one of those visits, we are all sitting with some group
Mm.
of people in Auroville, and somebody walks up to me from far and says, "Oh my God, Monika Halan herself." And I don't know the guy, right? So he says, "I was a caller on your NDTV show, and you said that I have enough money to retire, and here I am."
Wow.
Okay, and then I remembered he was an ex-army guy, so I did remember who he was after so many years after the show. But he took this advice. It's very scary to see the impact it has on people's lives. But he took the advice on the show. I looked at his numbers, and I said, with your pension, with your medical, this, that, you have enough money if you want to take early retirement. And he had actually wanted to join Auroville. So
Brilliant.
it was one of those moments where you feel very afraid also that your advice actually gets people to make life decisions. So that fiduciary then becomes yours even more.
Right. Very interesting. I think this is something really
Mm.
heart touching, actually.
Yeah, it is. It was a
Yes.
moment.
And so, Monica, the earlier book that you had, Let's Talk Money, and the current one that is there, Let's Talk Mutual Funds. What made you make the transition between that? And is the mutual funds a subset of the first book? And why only mutual funds? Why not, let's say, equity investing? Why not, PMSs? Because I can tell you at GoalTeller, I can give you an example that this whole fascination about PMSs, and this is not something which I faced once, multiple users where they say that I'm saving money so that I can reach 50 lakhs and I can invest into a PMS. I say you cannot invest all your equity money with a single manager. It
Right.
is harakiri to do that.
Correct.
But I don't know what is that they feel that either they are, the PMS makes them part of some league, but that feeling is there in people that I have achieved something if I've invested in. So they actually save money through SIPs so that they can invest into a PMS. It is amazing.
Very
So
scary. Yeah.
yeah, it is very scary. So I tell them that we don't suggest PMSs until you've got 2.5 crores into equity,
Correct.
because per manager exposure should not be more than 20%. Now, the journey from Let's Talk Money to Let's Talk Mutual Funds. Why only mutual funds? And if you can give a brief about what's the difference in this book,
Yeah.
and
Right. So when I was writing Let's Talk Money, when I came to the chapter on mutual funds, I realized I had so much to say that I said that I think I need to write another book just on this topic. And I forgot about that. But readers went on reminding me, you had said you will write, where is that book? So that was one. And the second is that I believe very strongly that for an entry level retail investor, the mutual fund is a product ready for that market. You can invest with as little as 1,000 rupees a month in through an SIP. You've got categories, you've got 37 categories out of which you just need five or six. And if you have the understanding of selecting those, you have a partner for life in the schemes that you choose. You don't need to jump from scheme to scheme. The regulatory reform has been such that costs have been brought down. It's a no load product. Okay, 2000 till 2009 there was a load. Till 2006 earlier there was a 6% NFO charge. I don't know if you know that, right? So you've got a regulator who's made the product retail worthy. You've got a good benchmarking system. You've got the product which is true to label. SEBI is vigilant in uh, figuring out what are the problems, what are the monkey businesses that funds get up to, and helps to solve those. So here is a product which is retail ready. You need so I, my the analogy I give is that there's a sports car out there. You need to be a very good driver to be able to get the best out of it. So therefore this it's a you should see it in the space of financial education. It's a sequel to Let's Talk Money, and I'm saying that I am not going to insult you by giving you five funds to invest in. I'm not giving a list of uh, funds. You will have to do an equal amount of work. Whatever works that I have done, you will have to do an equal amount of work to use this book to get your own set of schemes that you will invest in. Then you will own that decision. You need never to come back to me. I don't have one more workshop to sell. I don't have one more snake oil to sell. You are going to be empowered enough to do this on your own. Should you wish to take the active fund route, otherwise there's always the passive fund route. So it's a conversation I'm having with my reader to say you can do it. You can do it on your own. You have to manage your expectations. You have to be steady. You want kicks, you take some money out and whatever it is you want to do, day trading, whatever, you do it with a fraction of your invested. This is sacred money, you do not mess with this. So that's the messaging that I'm giving over and over again, that don't come to this market for kicks, please get it elsewhere.
I'm actually scared that our thoughts are fairly mirroring, and you can hear one some of our spaces in the past. So, but that's very good. In fact, I would take your statement a little further. Mutual funds are not only for retail investors, and this is something which I've tried to convince a lot of my family office accounts also, that it is not necessary that something like a, I would not take names, but some fund which is good for a 5,000 rupee user, it's good for a 500 crore treasury also. And they've
Correct.
made actually more money in that net of taxes and net of costs than they would have made into one of the best performing PMSs.
Correct.
And
No,
that's,
no, I
yeah,
agree. I agree that it actually doesn't matter. You don't have
yeah,
to upgrade to a PMS
yes,
because it's not just about the highest return.
yes,
It is also about you know what you are doing. You have visibility on what comes ahead. PMS for me is a very high risk single manager product,
yeah,
which it's just as much as the fund does better or worse, the PMS will also have its ups and downs, and then you're
absolutely.
invested fully into one person's call of the market.
Cycles,
It's
yes.
a scary thought for me, and I know that, and I've argued with some of the more famous people who've done PMSs who are in the market,
Mm.
and I'm saying that your intentions are very good, but I cannot find it in my heart to recommend an investor to do a PMS.
Yeah. Well, again, see, I had a vantage point from a consolidation perspective because my last, entity, Altior, we used to consolidate family offices across their wealth managers. So I can tell you the biggest problem of investors, especially large guys, has been the other queue is moving. They keep moving. I mean, the portfolio turnover is enormous. And I tell every retail guy on the Twitter spaces that if you think the HNI is making more money than you, you're actually wrong. They, in most cases, they're making lesser money than you. They're
That,
just getting more kicks out of the whole process
yeah,
because they're getting more ego massage. The
yeah,
wealth managers coming. But if you ask making money, no, because they get many more accidents. They invest into exotic products.
correct.
A lot of locked-in products. None of them have made more than 3-4% at
What
best. I'm saying
AIF story is that?
AIF story, which is private equity funds, real estate funds. There are
So
many.
I get asked, oh, so mutual fund gives you some return, but these other things. I
Mm,
do stock trading. So my only pushback is, please tell me what has been your portfolio return over the 5 years that you've been
mhm.
doing this. Please tell me your portfolio return, which they don't want to because neither do they calculate it. Because I'm saying I don't know what wager you want to put. I'm telling you that you have done worse than the broad market index.
Much worse. And even if you just compare equity as an asset class, forget the
Yeah.
accidents in the non-equity part. I think
Yes.
even that they won't have made money because
Correct.
the timing, they do so much of timing,
Correct.
very difficult to make
So
money.
that sort of ends the conversation because they don't have that number. Somewhere they don't want to take home the fact that a simple fill it, shut it, forget it, no
Yes,
brainer has done better than
better, yes.
their monkey jumps through I don't know how many hoops.
Many, many of them,
Yeah, so it's
yes.
their money, they can afford to do with it fine. I just don't want the 2000 to 50,000 rupee investor.
Mhm.
I feel they really need to just stay very steady with these products. Rich guys can figure it out.
Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.